the Conversion Corner, a place I love to go where I talk to people who say maybe they never dreamed they would darken the doorstep of a Catholic church and yet today find that they are one. Well, we are very blessed this morning to be joined by Rae-Mi here in our Conversion Corner, here to tell us about her journey into the Catholic faith. Hello, Rae-Mi. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you for having me here with you today.
Boy, you're so welcome. It's so great to hear from you. Well, the first thing that I want to talk about, you and I have something in common. You may not know this, but we're Buckeyes. You're a Buckeye, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, tell me the story about that. You were born in Ohio, right?
Yes, I was born in Medina, Ohio, about south of Cleveland, and grew up in a really small town called Seville. So I'm a country girl from Ohio. That's my roots. So very proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually come from the other side of the state. My wife is a Buckeye native. I grew up in Ohio in the Dayton area. So when I saw that, I'm like, hey, a fellow Buckeye. Can't go wrong there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Nice. Now, where do you live now?
I live in Sedona, Arizona, which is an absolutely beautiful place. I don't know if you've ever been here.
Yeah, no, I haven't, but it's on my list of places I got to visit. That's like the Grand Canyon, right?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half from the Grand Canyon in northern Arizona, and we have these incredible red rocks. They're just so beautiful. We have a joke here that God may have created the Grand Canyon, but he lives in Sedona.
he moved about an hour and a half down the road. Very cool story. Rae-Mi this morning. Well, you know, it's funny because I was talking earlier this morning. For a couple of decades now, I have been chronicling on the radio and other places what I like to refer to as the rise of the nuns, N-O-N-E-S. Mm-hmm. And so I always have to spell that out, and I'm getting to the point now where I don't even really need to spell it out anymore, but it's N-O-N-E-S, people who have, you know, really decided that they don't need religion anymore, or maybe never had religion in the first place, right? And you are now a former, I guess, nun, N-O-N-E.
Yes.
So let's start your story at the beginning. Tell me about your growing up in Ohio. Did you come from a family of faith, or was that not something that was part of your life from the beginning?
Well, I do come from a Catholic family. I was baptized Catholic when I was less than a month old, so I got off to an amazing start. But my parents left the church when I was probably around 2 years old. I have no memory of it whatsoever. So I grew up without any faith at all. We didn't pray, we didn't go to church, we didn't talk about God, nothing. So my life as a kid was really just about, you know, getting good grades, pleasing my parents. And my mom actually opened a dance studio when I was about 5 years old. So I fell in love with dancing. So my life was just about getting A's and winning dance trophies. And that was pretty much it.
and if I had to guess, I would guess that you probably did both very well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I figured. You're probably a straight A kid. Now, do you have siblings as well?
I do. I have an older brother. He's about 5-6 years older than me. So yeah, we really didn't talk about, I can't believe it now, of course, but it just wasn't a part of our lives.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I always like to mention, whenever I talk about this idea of the nuns, right, I always like to bring up the point that when we talk about nuns, we're not making a value judgment. In other words, I would never ever say that a nun is a bad person or anything like that. You know, I know lots and lots of nuns who are very moral people, who have a great moral compass, who are you know, just very good people. So there's not a judgment when we say that. The word nun simply means that they don't do any kind of religion per se. So would you say that's the case with your parents and with yourself, you know, that you were brought up with a good moral compass and you know, we're sort of good people?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my parents are the best people I know.
Yeah.
They would do anything for anybody, you know, give the shirt off their back. Yeah, and it was just about, you know, doing the right thing and being a good person. So certainly you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, that was our outlook on life. So it wasn't anything negative about religion. I just didn't really have any feelings about it at all. If anyone would ask me what my religion is, I would just say, well, you know, nothing.
So I'm curious, because a lot of people, even nuns, I think, would consider themselves to be Christians. Do you know what I mean? Where there's sort of this, I don't know, amorphous belief in a God, or maybe not necessarily even Christians, but theists. So I'm curious, would you have considered yourself an atheist, or would you consider yourself a theist, maybe even bordering on a Christian? What did you believe, if anything?
This is going to sound crazy, but I really didn't think much about it. I definitely never thought of myself as an atheist. I'd never said that I don't believe in God at all, but I never really talked about God or Jesus or thought much about it. I was very much a practical life, if you will. It was just about, like I said, as a kid, it's about, getting good grades and doing what you do as a kid. And for my parents, it was about doing a good job at work. And that's kind of the extent of it. It really was, there was never even the question asked about, is there a God, and what do we think about it?
Right. It's just not a topic of conversation, not something that you think about. Yeah. And I think for some people, that seems kind of foreign, but when that's how you live your life, it's really no big deal. It's like, well, yeah, you just don't think about it. It's not really something that comes up in conversation. Now, I'm thinking too that given what you told me a little bit earlier about straight A's and dance trophies and whatnot, you have probably always been very success motivated and oriented. Would that be fair to say?
Exactly. That was really what my life was about, and my goals was just being quote unquote successful, right?
Yeah. Okay, so tell me how that played out. What did you try to be successful at, and where did that lead you in life?
Sure. Well, because I love to dance so much, and I also sang and acted, it was a triple threat, if you will. My goal was to eventually be a professional performer. So I went to college at Otterbein College in Westerville, Ohio, which is now called Otterbein University. Mm-hmm. And I majored in musical theater. So my plan was to study theater and dance and then eventually go to Broadway. And something strange happened there. In their curriculum, they required a religion course. So since I didn't have any sort of thoughts about religion at all, I just wanted to pick whatever fit in my schedule. That was pretty much the extent of my thinking on the topic. And what fit in my schedule was Buddhism and Zen. And I had no clue what that even meant. But I signed up for it, and I thought, that's fine. I'll just get my A and move on. Just wanted to get out of there and get started with my career as a Broadway performer.
Yeah. So not thinking of any kind of spirituality or spiritual aspect, right?
Oh, not at all. I didn't have time for that. That was for other people. Yeah. I was just all about starting my career.
Right.
But to my surprise, I really loved it. It was my first time I was exposed to anything remotely spiritual at all. And I really loved the concept of non-attachment, because I was never really a materialistic kid. So I love that was actually a positive thing in some circles. And just kind of being still and being quiet was really nice. And I loved it so much that when I could pick a topic for a senior project, I actually picked Buddhism and Zen to study even more. And I went to a retreat. So I really did love it. But as soon as I was done with college, I kind of dropped it like a hot potato because I was ready to get started with real life.
Sure, like being successful. So I'm guessing that, you probably had stars in your eyes, right? You wanted to be a big star.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
And I always joke, you can't get more real than moving to Hollywood, which is actually what I ended up doing. I decided to go to the West Coast instead of the East Coast to pursue my career as an entertainer. And I did that for about 8 years or so, and I had some really great things happen and exciting things happen, and I had some really difficult things happen as well, which ended up taking me back to pursuing spirituality. And the only spirituality I knew, of course, was Buddhism. So I dusted off all of my Buddhist books and started diving into it. Which then led me to yoga. So I started studying yoga. I got my yoga teaching certification. I was in a yoga studio every day. And from there, I just was opened up to all kinds of new age type things, manifesting and affirmations and anything you can think of under that umbrella. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it at the time. And the same time my career really took off, I decided to switch to the business side of the entertainment industry. And I got my master's in business. And I worked at Universal Studios Hollywood in the creative department, which is kind of like Imagineering, handling contracts and payments for all the rides and shows in the park. And then I switched to TV distribution at NBC Universal, handling Asia Pacific clients, distributing movies and TV shows to them, and then eventually settled in at 20th Century Fox in worldwide contract distribution. So I really felt like at this point I had it all figured out.
Yeah.
My career.
Climbing the ladder, totally, baby, huh?
Yeah, finally. Yeah. I was always trying to have it figured out too. You know? I was like, okay, now I got it figured out. I'm climbing the ladder exactly. My career's really taking off, and I'm super spiritual, man, but not religious.
Yeah,
not religious.
Right. And that is sort of the definition, if you will, of a nun, None, someone who says, I'm spiritual but not religious. So I'm curious, what was it about Buddhism and Zen that attracted you so much?
I was always a bit wound tight.
No.
Maybe you caught that.
A bit type A-ish?
Yeah, exactly. So I really loved that there was that letting go. I always kind of laugh that, especially in the yoga world, there's a lot of talk of surrender, which I loved, but I never asked the question, like, who am I surrendering to?
Yeah.
I'm just surrendering. And it was really just about emptying yourself, and letting go. And that's a really attractive idea to somebody who's really wound tight, living in the present moment. Nothing really matters, you're just a drop in the ocean, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that can be very attractive when you have some anxiety and all of that. But the downside of that is that it can be very nihilistic. You can end up getting to a place where, like, wait a minute, nothing matters.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what's the point of anything then?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what ended up happening to me, not to move things along to the next part, but.
Well, that's okay. And one of the things that I would like to pick your brain on this too, when I know with a lot of folks, especially who get into sort of like the new age thing, like you said, you have to ask the question, well, to what or whom am I surrendering? And for a lot of folks, I think the answer is like this amorphous concept of the universe, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the universe does this and that and the other thing.
It's very ambiguous.
Yeah.
There isn't that, of course, as Christians, we know we have a personal relationship with Jesus, and it's very personal. But with that world, it's very ambiguous. Nothing's very defined very clearly. And, everyone is, I always say they're searchers. I was a searcher.
Yeah.
I was looking, it's like I knew inside there was something else. And sadly, it was easier to turn to all of that. It was more accessible. And it just became very easy to fall into it.
Yeah. And in that world too, I know, there are really no absolutes. I mean, there's not like this concept of absolute truth. It's sort of like your truth, my truth, whatever, whose ever truth it is.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And you're opening yourself up to anything. I mean, I remember going to yoga classes and we're chanting. And I didn't really question it. I was like, oh, this feels good. And it usually feels good.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you don't realize what you're opening yourself up to.
Yeah. So
I think there's good intentions behind all of it.
Yes. And that's an important point too, as I said earlier, Rae-Mi, about this idea of, we're not making value judgments about people and that they're good people or bad people. But oftentimes they just have confused ideas. So at what point did you finally come into contact, if you will, with the notion of God, and that it's not just the universe, that there is truly a God, and where did that lead to?
Oh wow, yeah. So So I ended up feeling really empty, even though my career was taking off and I was super spiritual. It kind of surprised me. I didn't quite know what was going on. I was just feeling a bit lost. I actually said to my parents had moved to Sedona during this time. So I was visiting them at Christmas 2014. And I actually said to them, I don't know who I am anymore. And I didn't really even know what I meant by that. I just knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
So when I went back to LA after the holidays, I thought to myself, well, the only thing I could think to do was to go closer to nature. I just need to go where it's quiet. That's all I could think to do. So God wasn't really a part of it yet. I just need to get closer to nature. So I went into my boss's office and I said, well, this is my 2-week notice, or I can work remotely, which was really unusual at the time in 2015. Not too many people were doing that. But she agreed, and I went ahead and packed up anything that would fit in my car. I threw away everything else, and I decided to move to Sedona. And definitely, if you want to get close to nature, this is a great place to do it.
Yeah.
And I started working remotely, and I thought I had it all figured out again, because I was able to get on a trail every morning, and I really dove into my yoga and Buddhism. I don't know if you know this, but Sedona is known as a New Age town. So I was really able to dive into all of that, and I was really happy doing that. But then something unexpected happened again. A little over a year after I moved here, I had a dream of Jesus, and it was very real. I somehow instinctively knew who he was, and I woke up and I thought, well, that's weird. Jesus only goes to people who go to church, right?
Right.
And
he only knows church folks, yeah.
Yeah, all those perfect people, those holy people. And I'm definitely not one of those people. That's what secular people think, by the way.
Sure.
And I thought, well, clearly he got lost. And I just kind of brushed it off, and I went on a Buddhist retreat, and I still was all into, being a Buddhist and all of that. But I always say over the next 6 months after that, Jesus was courting me, because I would listen to a talk by a Buddhist teacher, and he would bring up the Serenity Prayer. And he said, this is a Catholic prayer, but it's really beautiful. You should look it up. And so I did. And he said, especially the second part of the Serenity Prayer is, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, which I really liked. I was like, oh, that's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read a book by a Buddhist nun who lived in a cave for 14 years, which I thought was super cool. And when she got out of the cave, she went to Assisi, and she's talking about Assisi and the nuns of Assisi. So then I'm looking up Assisi, and of course, who do I meet? St. Francis. And if you don't fall in love with St. Francis, you need to get your heart checked.
Yeah.
He's amazing. So yes. I love that. And then I listened to a talk by a New Age guru named Ram Dass, a pretty famous one. And he brought up sin, which was really crazy. I had never heard anybody talk about sin in my life. And he simply said, if you sin, you can't get to God. Just like that. And I thought to myself, well, I never really thought about getting to God, but that sounds like something I want to do.
Yeah.
And so all these things started happening, it was happening over the six months there from June to December. And finally, when I got to December 2016, I thought, you know what? Maybe I should check out the Catholic Church. I was baptized Catholic after all.
Yeah.
And just see what's going on over there, because all these things were Catholic.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So here you're doing your Buddhist thing, right? And little by little, all of these Catholic concepts and people keep coming into your purview there. I'm curious, though. I want to go back real quick, if you don't mind. And by the way,
Sure.
It's our conversion corner. Rae-Mi Leroy is with us this morning. When you had that dream about Jesus, did Did he say anything? Did he have a message for you, or did he just like appear in your dream and you just knew it was him?
Oh no, he definitely said some things to me. In the dream, I was kind of raised up and I was right in front of him. And he said, "What do you say every day?" And I was thinking really hard. I wanted to make sure I answered correctly.
You got to get your straight A from Jesus.
Exactly. You know me so well already. And at the time, I was doing affirmations. So I said, "All is well in my life," because that's something I would look in the mirror and say all the time.
Okay.
And he said, "Which life?" And I thought, whoa,
What does
that's
that
interesting.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And he kind of motioned to the side, and I looked, and there were all these feathers sticking out of the ground. And he said, "Those are all of the hearts beating on earth." And I thought to myself, well, that's weird. That definitely isn't everybody. Because it was a lot of feathers.
Yeah, but right. Not billions of feathers, right.
Yeah. And next thing I knew, he was holding me as if I was a child.
Wow.
And I felt very safe. And I looked up and I saw a feather floating in the air. And he said, "Go ahead." And I walked over and I grabbed it. And it had a ring on it. And I put it on my finger and I woke up.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, okay, now I have to take a quick break. Can you hang on for just a couple of minutes? We'll come back and finish the story.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind and generous. I really appreciate that. Rae-Mi Leroy is with us this morning here on Seize the Day, and I am Gus Lloyd. It's our Conversion Corner, telling us the story of how she was baptized Catholic, but her folks gave up religion when she was just a baby, and she started to adopt Buddhism, and then began being introduced to Catholic concepts over and over again. So when we return, we're going to hear, as the late great Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. Keep it here. I'm Gus Lloyd, seizing the day with you on the Catholic Channel.
Every day, he's seizing the day. Why don't you seize it with him? Here's Gus Lloyd.
Welcome back to our Conversion Corner. So delighted to have with us this morning Rae-Mi Leroy. She is telling us the story of how she was baptized Catholic as a baby, but her folks gave up religion early on, and she really grew up with no kind of religion, and then really sort of embraced Buddhism. I'm just curious, Rae-Mi, you haven't really said, though, at this point in time, would you have referred to yourself as a Buddhist? Would you have said, "I'm a Buddhist," if someone asked you, "What religion are you?"
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a Buddhist, but now you find all of these Catholic concepts, the concept of sin, St. Francis of Assisi, all these things start kind of crashing into your life. So tell me about when you finally said, well, I think I need to look into this whole Catholicism thing. What happened then?
So I went to the website for the local parish, St. John Vianney Catholic Church, and it was very much out of date, which sadly is often the case.
Yes.
And it said, "We have the 7 sacraments." And I thought, well, I have no idea what that even means. So I gave them a call, and I actually asked if I needed to buy a ticket. Just so you know how little I knew about going to
buy
church.
a ticket to church, like to get into church.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know you could just go.
Well, you better be careful, though, because soon there will be churches that will be offering tickets. So
I know,
keep
right?
that under your hat, Rae-Mi. Yeah.
My pastor always jokes with me, like, "How much did you think it was going to be?"
Right. Yeah. Give me a number.
Yeah. And of course she said, no, you just come. And I said, well, someone going to show me to my seat? All I had as an example was theater.
Yes.
I was just thinking about a theater,
Yes.
So she said, no, just come. So I went, I sat in the back, of course, and I just imitated sitting, standing, kneeling with everyone else. And I can't tell you what anyone said. I can't tell you what the gospel was or what the homily was. But really what stuck with me was the Eucharist. I remember everybody was drinking out of the same cup, and I was like, whoa, something must really be good in there if everybody's drinking out of the same cup. And I remember the priest taking a really long time to, quote unquote, do the dishes, as I said afterwards. So I'm like, something's happening here I don't quite understand what's going on. But after Mass, I ran out of there, before the priest even made it down the aisle. And I was like, okay, I did it, And I actually called my dad on the way home to tell him about it. And I said, what I told you about everybody drinking out of the same cup and doing the dishes. And he said, oh, well, they believe that that's the body and blood of Jesus. And I just thought that made sense. I
Wow.
thought, well, that makes sense because it was something really important, and I really never questioned it. And so when I went back the next time, I actually waited after to talk to the priest. And I said to him, I'm not Catholic, but I want to understand what's going on. How do I find out what's happening here? And unfortunately, he said, well, just keep coming to Mass. And he kind of walked away. And I thought, well, that's not going to cut it because I have no idea what you guys are doing here. So I ended up calling the parish down the road called Immaculate Conception in Cottonwood, Arizona. And they had an RCIA program. And they connected me with the RCIA teacher named Janice Cassier. And she has a master's in biology and theology. She's brilliant. And she's from Ohio, too. So it was like we were long lost family members, we got along really well. And at this point, it's February 2017. So I was too late for that RCIA class, but they were going to start one in the summer. So for that time, I did go to Mass, and I ended up kind of dropping in on the RCIA class that was going on. But when I was going to that parish, finally, I was really listening to the gospel for the first time and really hearing it. And my mind was blown. The first gospel I remember was when Jesus says, do not be anxious about your life, what you shall wear, what you shall drink. And I was just thinking to myself, this is what you guys are talking about in here? This is amazing. Like, why isn't everybody here? Like, this is what I've been wanting to hear my whole life.
Yes.
I mean, I'll never forget the first time I heard the raising of Lazarus. Everybody around me, he reads it and says, the word of the Lord. I was like, praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, sits down. And I'm sitting there like my jaws on the floor. I was like, did you not hear what he just said?
Yeah.
Like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I mean, I had never heard these things before. I mean, I was 38 years old. I'd never heard these things before.
Yeah.
I was absolutely blown away. And I was all in. I was like, oh no, this is it. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. Just tell me where to sign, and I went through, Lent and Easter, and I wasn't Catholic yet. So I kind of was like, well, I'm not Catholic yet, but I'll just kind of be on the outskirts. And I did go to the Triduum that year, and I went to the Good Friday Mass. And I remember that was the first time I was on my knees. It was dark, and I was looking up at the crucifix. And that was the first time I really understood that Jesus died for me. Like, Jesus died for me.
Yeah. Brought it home.
God. Yeah. It's the first time it really registered. And I was thinking, the God who created everything came as a man and died for me. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, that means that I have to act as if I'm that important. Like, I have to change
worth
my
that.
life.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, I have to give him everything now. Like, that's the proper response to that. Like, everything has to be about him now. I will never get over it. I'll never get over it for the rest of my life. Like,
wow.
That was just a huge moment for me. And finally, my RCIA class started in the summer, and I was like a sponge. I was listening to everything I listened to was Catholic. Everything I watched was Catholic. Everything I read was Catholic. I just thought it was amazing. And I did encounter a temptation during this time. I didn't really see it that way at the time, but my teacher, Janice, recognized it right away. I got a call from my boss at 20th Century Fox, and she said, we have an amazing opportunity for you. We want to offer you a director level position, 6-figure salary, but you have to move back to LA. And I was thinking, well, this is everything I always wanted. This is what I had been working towards. And so I told her I had to think about it, but deep down I knew I couldn't. There's no way I could do it. I know there's probably a vibrant Catholic community in Los Angeles.
Yeah, right.
But I knew that if I moved back to LA, I would just slip right back into my old life. Like, I just knew it.
That's very insightful.
And
yeah.
Yeah, and I knew I had discovered a treasure and I just couldn't leave it. And of course, I'm very practical too. So I made a spreadsheet and I calc the numbers, and a 6-figure salary in LA doesn't go quite as far as you might think.
Yeah.
So I ended up calling her back, and I told her, I really appreciate this opportunity, but I really love my life here and I just can't leave. And she said, well, I feel bad for you. And I said, well, that's a strange response to somebody saying they love their life. But she said, any woman in their late 30s would love an opportunity like this. And I was like, well, I'm a woman too, and this is what I want to do. So I ended up making it through that. But finally, in October of that year, I had my first confession. And I was, of course, incredibly nervous. I had, 38 years of stuff and things I never said out loud before. And I was writing it all down. Of course, got to get my A. I got to make sure I don't forget anything. And I was very nervous that if I dropped my piece of paper, someone would trace it back to me and see everything I had done. So I wrote it all in code to make sure that would never happen. And I got to the room where we're going to do the confession. It was just a big open room. The priest was just sitting in a chair, and I thought, no way. There's no way I can do this. Like, I'm going to cry for sure.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I need to be behind something. So they were all laughing at me. They pulled a divider. Now I don't care. I'll totally do it open. But they pulled out a divider so I could go behind a divider with the priest. And I gave him my whole list, everything, and he had no reaction on his face at all. Like, I expected him to be like falling off his chair in shock,
Right. You did what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was nothing going on at all, no emotion.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, at least I got a priest who can't hear very well.
A deaf priest. I love it.
Exactly.
Right.
Like that.
Not thinking that he'd heard all this before, right?
Right. Exactly. Oh no. Yeah. Exactly. But as if, reading my mind, he repeated back everything I had said, which was like supernatural in and of itself for him to remember all of that. But it was almost like God's way of saying, nope, I heard you.
Yeah, there you go.
I heard all of it. And then he forgave me. He absolved me from my sins. And that was amazing. Like, I had no idea until that very moment how I was identifying, like my identity was caught up in the things I had done.
Yeah.
So when those were gone and I'm still here.
Yeah. And now you get, you've been recreated. You've become a new creation. I got to tell you, First of all, it's such a delight to have you here. I'm just, I'm really taken by your energy and your love and your zeal. I mean, I really mean that sincerely, Rae-Mi. So you said something though, last week in the liturgy, we were reading from Matthew chapter 13, and right near the end of Matthew 13, he tells these two very small parables, these two very small stories that just remind me of you. The one is the person who finds a buried treasure in a field, and they go and sell all that they have to get that treasure. You used that word just a couple of minutes ago when you were talking about your conversation with the Fox people, and you said, "No, I have this treasure." And I'm just so struck by that. That's so beautiful. And the other, of course, is the merchant who finds the pearl of great price. And that's you. Mm-hmm. You found the pearl of great price. Yeah. And you're willing to give everything, to sell all that you have to maintain, to get that pearl of great price. So good on you. I'm curious about another thing. When you decided to enter into full communion with the church, did you have Buddhist friends and others, yoga friends and whatnot? And did you tell them? And what was their reaction, if so?
For me, I was just so joyful and excited, that if I did speak to anyone about it, I was just like, you're not going to believe what I just found. This is amazing.
Yeah. And they couldn't help, I'm sure, but to be excited for you, I hope.
And the reaction is just like, that's really great for you. And, really happy for you. And then, either I don't talk to him ever again, or, there's still my life, but it's like they're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing. And that can be kind of hard for me because it's just like, can't you see, know?
Yeah.
But I realize it really is a grace.
Yes.
It's a total grace.
So what does God have you doing now?
Oh, wow. So my confirmation was December 17th, 2017. And as I always say, when you say yes to God, buckle up, because
Yeah, amen.
He's going to do things you never thought of. Janice, my RCIA teacher, saw how zealous I was, and she said, "You should get your master's in theology." And I was like, okay. So 1 month after my confirmation, I started the Master's in Theology program at Franciscan University of Steubenville. And I finished that last year. So I have my Master's in Theology, and I really had no plan. I'm just a lover who wants to know their beloved, which is a definition of a theologian that I love. I just needed to know as much as possible. So that was my approach to that. But we actually got a new pastor here at St. John Vianney Catholic Church. His name's Father Ignatius Mazanowski. He started about 4 years ago, and he came up to me and said, I really could use some help, reviving the parish. And so I said yes, and I joined the staff at St. John Vianney Catholic Church in the Chapel of the Holy Cross. Awesome. In June of 2021. And I manage the social media and live streaming and digital media. We're at chapeloftheholycross.com and sjvsedona.org. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Chapel Sedona at SJV Sedona. So I've just been, that's my whole world. We're actually looking into building a healing and retreat center here in Sedona. So I'm helping with that project as well. I have the opportunity to give presentations on the saints every once in a while at Institute of Catholic Theology in Phoenix, which has been amazing. And I've been on a pilgrimage to France. I'm going on a pilgrimage to Italy this year. So it's just been absolutely incredible. And you know what? Like at the end of the day, if all I did was just go to Mass, like that would be fine.
Yeah. But isn't it amazing though, what kind of doors God opens when you just say yes? That's it.
Yeah.
And the doors go flying open, and wow, it sounds like you're doing such great work. Well, listen, I got to run, but what a privilege having you here this morning. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll keep us in your prayers and be assured of our prayers for you as you continue to do God's work in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're so very welcome. Rae-Mi Leroy with us this morning here on Seize the Day in our Conversion Corner, telling us the story. Baptized Catholic, became a nun, and then a Buddhist, and eventually the Hound of Heaven got control of her and continues to maintain control. Thanks be to God, I say. All right, I'm Gus Lloyd.